I'm not much of a storyteller, but here we go. I grew up on a Civil War battlefield. The same battlefield that General Lee and Grant first fought. The wilderness. Everywhere you go in the area, there are historical markers of events that took place. From Lee and Grant and Stonewall Jackson and so much more. Although there are historical markers, they don't tell the complete history. Sometimes, history is lost. One piece of history from this battlefield that's not really written about is the actual fate of the troops who died. Most of the battlefield was engulfed in flames from artillery, and the wounded just suffered a painful death from being burned alive. My bedroom was facing into the dark, mysterious woods. As a young child, my friends and I would build forts and cabins in those woods. Due to the presence of copperheads in the area, we would build our fort and clear it of any leaves and debris. Doing so, we would find hundreds leather soles from soldiers' boots and partial uniforms, buckles and other artifacts. Since those days, I've always wondered if we were building these silly forts on a mass grave. There was a neighborhood located not too far on the other side of this battlefield. I had friends who lived there, and we would traverse the spooky wilderness, day and night, to hang out. Through my teenage years, I have traveled hundreds of miles through those woods. I could go on and on about all of the apparitions and other sightings I have witnessed. Nothing compares to the feeling you get when you feel, these spirits. There have been times when I am trekking my way home and I just want to run because I'm unsure of the spirit's intentions, yet it makes you stop and try to understand them. Either good or bad. Every time I got brushed by a stick or a branch from the trees, it would spook me. It felt like some soldier was on the ground grabbing me, desperately trying to get away from the horror. The only light you have is the sky above you and sometimes the glowing moss along the trail. Not much light at all. It's pure darkness surrounding you for the most part. You'll see apparitions at times, but being alone, you ignore them as if they are in your head. I never feared for my life, but I felt the terror others went through in a spiritual way. The rebel yell. If you're wondering what the rebel yell is, it was the battle cry of the Confederate Army. You can actually find a video on YouTube of the old veterans making this yell. It's from the 1930s and very interesting to watch. Anyway, the poltergeist troops could be heard from time to time, but you never knew if it was someone out in the distance at 3 to 4 in the morning or a troop screaming for help. What was very unsettling was when you could smell burning wood followed by the cries of help/rebel yells. At the bottom of the neighborhood that I grew up in, there was an old railroad bed that was being funded before the Civil War. When the Civil War broke out, the funding for this railroad had stopped. Since the bed for this railroad was already laid prior to the Civil War, it was utilized by Civil War troops. They called it the abandoned railroad. Only a few Civil War books cover this railroad. Yet, it was very vital to the outcome of the wilderness battle. Fast forward, after the Civil War, the railroad was completed and used for about 70 years. Eventually it ceased operations in the 1930s. The reason why I am bringing up this railroad is because it was part of the trail that I would walk through during my walk to see friends. Sometimes, you could see a light out in the distance as if a steam train was en route. As you stare at the light, you could sometimes see what appeared to be troops flanking across the abandoned track. This was actually an event that took place in the wilderness battle. I know it's not much of a story. It's one of those things, you'll have to be there to absorb the feeling of the area. It's been well over 20 years since the last time I've been there, but I think about this area often and actually want to revisit. I'm not sure if it's because I miss the area or if the spirits are calling me back. And there's more to the story, so I guess I'll write more later.